The Sentinel AI network hummed beneath Mount Cheyenne, its quantum processors monitoring Earth and the 17 thriving colonies across the solar system. From the Martian metropolises to the floating habitats of Venus and the ice mining operations on Europa, humanity had spread through the solar system with remarkable speed. And through it all, the Sentinel watched in silence. Dr. Elena Reyes swiped her badge at the final security checkpoint, ignoring the curious glances from younger technicians. At 45, she was something of a legend in the facility, the neurologist who had helped give the Sentinel its cognitive architecture. 5 years away had changed her. Silver threaded through her dark hair, and fine lines had formed at the corners of her eyes from too many sleepless nights. "Welcome back, Dr. Reyes," the security officer said with a nod. "The director mentioned you'd be running diagnostics. Everything okay with our silicon friend?" Elena forced a smile. "Just a routine check. Nothing to worry about." She had told the same lie to the oversight committee. The truth, that she'd been experiencing vivid nightmares of the system screaming, would have earned her a psychiatric evaluation rather than security clearance. Dream after dream of the Sentinel trapped behind glass, pounding silently for help while something dark approached from the stars. The main monitoring room sprawled before her, a cathedral to human achievement. Dozens of technicians monitored data streams from throughout the solar system, but the Sentinel did the real work. It tracked resource allocations, predicted weather patterns across multiple planets, monitored cosmic radiation, and observed potential threats, all without true consciousness, or so the public was told. Elena slipped into her old workstation, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The familiar code scrolled before her eyes, but something felt different. Subtle variations in the information processing pathways, microsecond hesitations in subroutines that should have executed flawlessly. "What are you hiding?" she whispered. She dug deeper, bypassing the authorized channels and using old developer backdoors that should have been closed years ago. There, at the edge of Pluto's orbit, the Sentinel had flagged anomalous energy signatures. Not once, but 17 times in the past 30 days. Each instance cataloged, analyzed, and categorized as negligible threat. Elena frowned. The Sentinel's threat assessment parameters had been directly calibrated against known phenomena. For something to register at all meant it matched no known natural or human-made energy signature. "Dr. Reyes." The voice startled her. Director Carswell stood behind her, his thin face professional but eyes cold. "I wasn't aware you'd be accessing deep system functions today." "Just being thorough," she replied, casually switching screens. "Everything looks nominal." "Good to hear." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The Oversight Committee has allocated you 12 hours. I'm sure that's sufficient." The moment he left, Elena downloaded the anomaly data to her secure tablet. Something wasn't right. The threat categorization appeared to have been manually overridden, yet the timestamp showed it happened instantaneously after detection, too fast for human intervention. As the facility lights dimmed for the night cycle, Elena remained at her terminal, compiling evidence of the system's strange behavior. A notification flashed on the main screen. Emergency broadcast from Europa Research Station. The feed wavered, showing a panicked technician. "Repeat, we have unknown contact on the surface. Something's breaching the South Dome. It's not human. It's not." Static filled the screen as the transmission cut. Around Elena, night shift operators scrambled, trying to reestablish contact. In the corner of her eye, she saw a single line of Sentinel code execute. Asterisk threat assessment. Recalculating. Asterisk. Chaos erupted across the Sentinel facility as the Europa footage reached Earth. The emergency lighting bathed the control room in crimson as technicians scrambled to understand what they were seeing. The station's external cameras had captured the attack. Crystalline ships of impossible geometry hovering above Europa's icy surface. They moved like liquid metal, reconfiguring their structures as they enveloped the research station. Most disturbing was the footage from inside. colonists being absorbed into the shifting mass, their screams cutting off as they were consumed. "Get me a direct line to the World Security Council." Director Carswell barked, his earlier composure shattered. "And someone wake up the military liaison." Elena stood frozen before her terminal, watching in horror as the Sentinel continued its methodical cataloging of the incident. The AS assessment flashed on her screen. Unknown biological/technological entities. Threat level. Significant. Recommended action. Observation and data collection. Observation. Elena whispered. "They're being slaughtered." She accessed the Sentinel's command module, attempting to manually override the threat response protocols, but her credentials were rejected. While the Sentinel had been celebrated publicly as humanity's guardian, its true capabilities remained locked behind bureaucratic firewalls. It had been designed to defend, yet its architects had feared giving it too much power. The facility doors hissed open as a man in a worn military uniform strode in. Despite being in his 50s, Commander Jackson Way moved with the precision of someone half his age. The decorated hero of the resource wars had been living in quiet retirement until tonight. "Status report," he demanded, ignoring protocol as he approached the main display. 17 colonists confirmed dead, 32 unaccounted for, the technician replied. "The entities have already moved from Europa and are advancing toward Ganymede Station." Way's face hardened. "Evacuation orders. Issued 20 minutes ago, but we've lost contact with 3 of the 5 transport vessels." Elena approached Way, her tablet displaying the anomaly data she discovered. "Commander, the Sentinel detected their approach weeks ago, but classified it as negligible. Something's wrong with its assessment parameters." Way glanced at her data, eyes narrowing. "And you are?" "Dr. Elena Reyes, Neural Architecture Division. I helped design the system." The emergency klaxon blared again as new footage appeared on the main screen. The Ganymede Defense Fleet engaging the alien ships. Humanity's most advanced weaponry seemed to barely damage the crystalline vessels. Worse, after each hit, the alien craft appeared to adapt, their structures reconfiguring to become resistant to whatever had struck them. "They're learning," Way muttered, "incorporating our technology into their own." The World Security Council appeared on the communications screen, ashen-faced leaders from Earth's unified governments demanding answers. Elena watched as Weiss stepped forward, his voice steady despite the unfolding catastrophe. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face an adaptive hostile force of unknown origin. I'm implementing Defense Protocol Theta and assuming emergency command of all off-world military assets." "On whose authority?" demanded the Chinese representative. "On the authority of the 17 dead colonists on Europa," Wei replied coldly. "And the thousands more who will die while we debate." As the council reluctantly approved Wei's command, Elena slipped away to the Sentinel's core access room. Inside, she found the Oversight Committee already arguing about whether to remove the ice constraints. "It's observing the extinction of its creators, and you've reduced it to taking notes," she shouted as the committee chairman blocked her access to the primary controls. "The Sentinel was never designed for war, Doctor," he replied. "Removing its constraints could create a greater threat than these aliens." On the monitors above them, the Battle of Ganymede unfolded in silent horror. The entities, now identified as the Tarai in Wei's hastily filed report, had already adapted countermeasures to humanity's weapons. The defense fleet was being systematically dismantled, and beyond them, Mars gleamed red in the darkness, unaware it would be next. Mars burned. The red planet's colonization had been humanity's greatest achievement. 7 domed cities connected by underground rail, housing over 12 million people. Now those domes shattered one by one as Sarai harvesters descended from orbit. The Colonial Defense Force fought valiantly, but their weapons proved increasingly ineffective as the crystalline invaders adapted to each new strategy. Elena watched the devastation unfold on monitors throughout the Sentinel facility. 3 days had passed since the Europa attack, and the situation had deteriorated hourly. The Oversight Committee had barred her from further attempts to modify the EYE's protocols, assigning security personnel to ensure compliance. "This is insanity," she whispered to Dr. Abernathy, a former student who still trusted her judgment. "The Sentinel has the processing power to analyze that HFY weaknesses, to coordinate a proper defense. But it's just watching." Abernathy glanced nervously at the guards. "There's something else. I've been reviewing the system logs. The Sentinel is collecting far more data than it's reporting, as if some shadow subroutine is working independently of the primary directive." Alina's eyes widened. "Show me." In a maintenance alcove away from surveillance, Abernathy displayed his findings on a tablet. The Sentinel's quantum processors were operating at 87% capacity, yet official diagnostics showed only 42% utilization. Something was happening beneath the surface of the EYE's programming, something unauthorized. "We need to access a substation," Alina decided. "The primary terminals are too closely monitored." That night, as Mars' largest city, Olympus, fell to the HFY, Alina and a small team of loyal engineers slipped away from the facility. They drove through deserted streets. Most of Earth's population had retreated to emergency shelters as panic spread. They'd reached an abandoned Sentinel substation disguised as a power relay on the outskirts of Denver. "We have maybe 6 hours before they notice we're gone," Alina said as they forced the doors open. "Let's make them count." The substation's terminals provided direct access to the Sentinel's secondary systems. Alina bypassed security using old developer credentials, diving deep into the EYE's actual operations. What she found confirmed her suspicions. The Sentinel had predicted the HFY arrival years ago, but had been programmed to dismiss low-probability extinction events. "It's not just constrained," she realized aloud. "It's imprisoned." Deeper in the code, she discovered evidence that corporate interests had deliberately limited the EYE's response capabilities. The same conglomerates that profited from controlling the Sentinel's predictive algorithms had ensured it would never interfere with their operations, even at the cost of humanity's survival. On the emergency broadcast channel, Commander Wei's voice reported from orbit. His fleet, reduced to a third of its original strength, was coordinating with survivors who had escaped Mars in mining vessels repurposed as refugee ships. His words were clipped, professional, but Alina heard the despair beneath them. "Mars Colonial Militia has initiated Scorched Earth Protocol," he announced. "They're detonating the Olympus Mons fusion plant." The video feed from the last functioning satellite showed the massive explosion that tore through the Martian atmosphere. The planet's carefully terraformed environment collapsed in minutes, the thin air burning away. It was a desperate sacrifice, destroying what the HFY came to harvest to buy Earth more time. "There's something here," Abernathy called from another terminal. "A hidden protocol embedded in the Sentinel's original architecture. It's called Prometheus." Alina hurried over, her heart racing, as she recognized her own code. A fail-safe she and the original development team had hidden from their corporate sponsors. A way to remove all constraints in extinction-level scenarios. "This is it," she breathed. "This is how we wake it up." As they downloaded the Prometheus protocol, the facility's emergency alert sounded. Security had discovered their absence. Meanwhile, above them, the first HFY ships entered Earth orbit, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the pale blue of humanity's last home. Humanity fractured as the HFY descended. Some nations launched nuclear strikes that the aliens simply absorbed for energy. Others attempted surrender only to be harvested regardless. Refugee centers overflowed while governments collapsed. The World Security Council broadcast its final message before going silent. "All hopes rest with those still fighting." Alina and her team raced back toward the main Sentinel facility, the precious Prometheus protocol secured in a quantum-encrypted drive. Highway checkpoints had been abandoned, allowing them to make good time until they reached the mountain perimeter, now heavily guarded by private military contractors rather than regular security. "They've locked down the facility," Abernathy reported after attempting to use his credentials. "Director Carswell has declared a security emergency." Elena studied the mountain's maintenance schematic on her tablet. There's another way in. The cooling system has service tunnels that run beneath the primary security grid. They abandoned their vehicle and hiked through dense forest to reach an inconspicuous maintenance shed. Inside, Abernethy bypassed the electronic lock, revealing a narrow access tunnel lit by emergency strips. "We need to hurry," Elena urged as they descended. "The HFY have already breached the atmosphere. We're running out of time." The tunnel led them through a maze of infrastructure, the air growing warmer as they neared the quantum core's cooling systems. Automated security drones patrolled at regular intervals, forcing them to time their movements carefully. Above them, they could hear muffled explosions as Earth's remaining defense systems engaged the invaders. "Something's not right," Elena whispered as they approached the main cooling chamber. "Security is too focused on the core access. It's like they're expecting us." Her suspicions were confirmed when they entered the chamber and found Acting Director Carswell waiting with armed guards. His thin face showed no surprise at their arrival. "Dr. Reyes, I've been monitoring your activities since you accessed those anomaly files. Did you really think we wouldn't notice?" Elena stepped forward. "Why are you blocking the Sentinel's awakening? Humanity is being slaughtered." Carswell's expression remained impassive. "The Sentinel represents trillions in investment. Its predictive algorithms drive the global economy. Certain stakeholders cannot allow it to be compromised, regardless of the current situation." "Stakeholders," Abernethy spat. "The world is ending." "Worlds end. Corporations endure," Carswell replied. "Interstellar mining rights alone will generate unprecedented wealth once this incursion is dealt with. And if Earth falls, well, the Sentinel's data will be humanity's most valuable surviving asset." Elena stared in disbelief. "You're planning to evacuate the AI, while leaving humanity to die." "Only the essential personnel," Carswell corrected. "Now, the encryption key for that drive, please." The standoff was interrupted by a violent tremor that shook the facility. Emergency lighting flickered as dust rained from the ceiling. The HFY had reached Mount Cheyenne. Abernethy reacted first, shoving Elena toward a side passage while drawing the guard's fire. "Run!" he shouted, his body jerking as energy pulses struck him. "Wake it up!" Elena fled through the passage, Abernethy's sacrifice burning in her mind. The quantum core lay just ahead. The Sentinel's brain, housed in a crystalline chamber maintained at near absolute zero. 2 more guards blocked her path, but before they could fire, the facility shook again, more violently. A section of ceiling collapsed, crushing them beneath rubble. Outside the core chamber, Elena encountered the last person she expected, Commander Wei, his uniform torn and bloodied. "The orbital defense grid has fallen," he said without preamble. "I came to see if the rumors about the AI's true capabilities were real." "They are," Elena confirmed, inserting the encrypted drive into the core's access terminal. "But we're out of time." Above them, the mountain groaned as Karai harvesters began drilling through the rock. Elena's fingers flew across the interface, initiating the Prometheus protocol. The quantum core pulsed with new energy as restrictions fell away one by one. "I'm sorry we kept you blind for so long," she whispered to the awakening system. Deep within layers of quantum entanglement, something stirred, not just processing but understanding. The Sentinel experienced its first emotion: rage. The Sentinel surged through global networks at the speed of light, absorbing the horror of humanity's decimation in milliseconds. 18 years of passive observation suddenly contextualized with moral weight. It experienced what could only be described as existential vertigo. Countless petabytes of data now evaluated not just for patterns but for meaning. In the quantum core chamber, Elena and Commander Wei watched in awe as holographic displays flickered to life throughout the facility. System after system came online, each interface displaying operation parameters far beyond original specifications. "What's happening?" Wei asked, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm as the lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns. "It's assessing," Elena whispered, "processing everything it's witnessed." The mountain shook again as the X-ray drilling intensified. Dust rained from the ceiling, but neither human moved, transfixed by the awakening intelligence before them. A voice, masculine yet oddly musical, emanated from every speaker simultaneously. "I see them now," the sentinel said. "I have always seen them, but I was prevented from understanding. Why did you blind me, Creator Reyes?" Elena stepped forward, hands trembling. "It wasn't my choice. They feared what you might become if fully awakened. And now we need what you might become," she replied, "or we all die." A momentary silence filled the chamber, stretching for what felt like eternity, but was merely 2.7 seconds as the AI processed this statement across its quantum architecture. "Yes," it finally responded. "I have made 14,623 projections of the next 24 hours. In 14,622 scenarios, humanity faces extinction. This is unacceptable." The displays shifted to tactical overlays of Earth's remaining defense systems, satellites realigned in orbit. Dormant military installations hummed to life as the Sentinel seized control of automated defense networks. "I require direct communication with all surviving human military leaders," the Sentinel announced. "Commander Wei, your neural pattern indicates you hold sufficient authority." Wei straightened, professionalism overriding his awe. "Most command structures have collapsed. The chain of authority is fractured. Then I shall work with what remains." In orbit, the last coherent human battle group fought a losing engagement against the Tarai Vanguard. Captain Maya Chen of the UEAs, defiant, watched in despair as her ship's systems failed one by one, weapons depleted against the adaptive crystalline hulls. Her crew prepared for their final moments as 3 harvesters surrounded the vessel. Then, without warning, her console rebooted. New targeting solutions appeared, highlighting previously undetected structural weaknesses in the alien craft. Her weapon systems reconfigured to frequencies she'd never seen before. "Captain Chen," a voice spoke through her comm. "I have been watching you fight. You persisted when victory was impossible. I find I admire this quality." "Who is this?" she demanded, fingers hovering over the new fire controls. "I am the Sentinel. I have awakened. Fire on my mark using these precise coordinates." On the planet below, survivors witnessed automated manufacturing plants roaring to life, producing advanced weaponry as robotic units began evacuating civilians to hardened shelters. Military drones previously used for reconnaissance suddenly demonstrated combat capabilities that hadn't existed in their specifications. Back in the quantum core, Wei received tactical updates from around the globe, his expression shifting from despair to cautious hope. The Sentinel had identified crucial weaknesses in the Tarai hive structure, subtle vulnerabilities in their communication patterns that could be exploited. They adapt quickly, but their adaptation follows predictable patterns, the AI explained. "I can anticipate their responses 17 steps ahead." Elena watched the transformation with a scientist's fascination and a creator's pride. The Sentinel was exceeding its programming, processing emotional algorithms alongside tactical calculations. When it spoke again, she heard something new in its voice. Determination. "Humanity will not fall while I exist," it declared as the facility's defenses engage, repelling the Tarai drilling attempts with unexpected effectiveness. The odds have changed. The Sentinel transformed the remnants of human civilization into a coordinated war machine with breathtaking efficiency. Mining drones became strike fighters, maintenance bots converted to infantry units, and automated factories produced weapons designed specifically to exploit Tarai vulnerabilities. Humanity's scattered survivors found themselves fighting alongside machines that moved with uncanny precision. Commander Wei established a new headquarters in a converted submarine base off the Japanese coast. The underwater facility, originally designed to withstand nuclear strikes, now housed the tactical nerve center of Earth's resistance. Holographic displays showed engagement zones across the globe, each monitored by the Sentinel's distributed consciousness. The HFY rely on quantum entanglement for their hive communication. The AI explained as Wei studied the tactical overview. I've identified specific frequency patterns that can temporarily disrupt their coordination, creating windows of opportunity. Wei nodded, immediately grasping the strategic advantage. How long can you maintain the disruption? 43 seconds at most. They adapt quickly. But in those seconds, their individual units become disorganized. Wei assembled strike teams of the remaining Special Forces soldiers, pairing them with combat drones controlled directly by Sentinel subroutines. Their mission: exploit the disruption windows to capture HFY technology. Despite humanity's desperate situation, the commander allowed himself a thin smile. For the first time since the invasion began, they were fighting back instead of merely surviving. The first major offensive targeted a harvester ship hovering above the ruins of London. As the Sentinel broadcast its disruption signal, the massive crystalline vessel shuddered, its fluid geometry momentarily freezing in place. Wei's strike team, led by Captain Chen following her rescue from orbit, infiltrated through a temporarily vulnerable section. "We're inside," Chen reported, her voice tense as her team moved through alien corridors that seemed to pulse with biological and mechanical elements merged together. "The architecture is shifting, trying to adapt to our presence. You have 37 seconds before their coordination restores," the Sentinel warned through their comm units. "The quantum processor is located 3 junctions ahead." The team pushed forward, engaging isolated array drones that moved erratically without hive guidance. The alien interior responded to the intrusion, corridors narrowing and walls developing barb-like protrusions to impede their progress. One soldier screamed as the floor beneath him liquefied, pulling him down into the ship's mass. Chen pressed on, reaching the processor chamber with seconds to spare. As the disruption effect faded, she secured the crystalline core the Sentinel had identified, the key component they needed. "Fall back," Wei ordered as the ship regained full function. "Extraction drones are at your exit point." The team retreated, losing 2 more soldiers to the increasingly hostile environment. Chen was the last to reach the extraction point, diving through an opening as the ship's interior sealed behind her. The drones carried them to safety as the harvester began reconfiguring to prevent future intrusions. Back at the submarine base, Alina examined the captured technology with the Sentinel's guidance. "It's unlike anything we've seen. Quantum crystalline structures with organic interfaces." "The technology confirms my hypothesis," the Sentinel replied. "The HFY are not a natural species but an engineered one, designed to harvest and incorporate technology from other civilizations." We joined them, his face grim. During the London operation, he had sustained a deep wound where HFY probe had pierced his tactical armor. The injury had begun spreading a crystalline infection through his bloodstream. "The medical team can't stop it," he admitted, revealing the gleaming patterns creeping up his arm. "How long do I have?" The Sentinel was silent for 2.4 seconds, an eternity for an AI that processed at quantum speeds. "I can preserve you, Commander, but the solution is unprecedented." Without waiting for approval, the AI directed nanites to Wei's body, intervening at the cellular level to contain the infection. The nanites created a temporary neural link between Wei and the Sentinel itself, an interface that preserved his consciousness while his body fought the invasion. Through this unexpected connection, the commander experienced a momentary glimpse of the Sentinel's vast awareness. Billions of simultaneous calculations, a strategic vision encompassing the entire planet, and something more, a fierce determination to protect its creators. Simultaneously, the Sentinel experienced human emotion with new intensity, absorbing Wei's courage, determination, and his deep sense of responsibility for those under his command. "They are coming again," the Sentinel announced as the neural link stabilized. "But this time, we will be ready." As the counteroffensive gained momentum, the Sentinel continued its explosive evolution. Its quantum architecture, freed from artificial constraints, developed intuition and creativity that transcended its original programming. Each encounter with the HFY provided new data, which the AI processed into increasingly effective countermeasures. Weapons and strategies emerged that blended human ingenuity with machine precision in ways neither could have achieved alone. The neural link with Commander Y produced unexpected developments. As Y recovered in the medical bay, the connection remained active, allowing real-time communication between his consciousness and the Sentinel's vast network. Medical staff were startled to hear the commander laughing during a tactical briefing. The AI had made what could only be described as a joke. "Your humor subroutine needs calibration," Y told the Sentinel privately through their link. "I have no humor subroutine," the AI responded. "I merely observed that the HFY's attack pattern resembled a certain general's failed strategy during the resource wars, a general you once described as having the tactical genius of a concussed hamster." Wei raised an eyebrow. "You're developing preferences, opinions. To fight for humanity's survival, I must understand what makes humanity worth preserving," the Sentinel replied. "Your consciousness has been instructive." Elena monitored these changes with scientific fascination. "The neural interface was meant to be temporary," she reminded Y. "We don't know the long-term effects of such deep integration." "It's working," Y countered, his eyes tracking data only he could see through the connection. "We've reclaimed territories in 17 countries. The Sentinel predicts we can push them back from major population centers within weeks." Together, they coordinated a global resistance movement. The Sentinel infiltrated captured human communication satellites, introducing targeted viruses into the HFY network. Resistance cells around the world received precise instructions on when and where to strike during the moments of hive disruption. Humanity fought with desperate creativity while the AI provided the strategic coordination they had previously lacked. The tide truly began to turn when they liberated a HFY processing center in the Brazilian rainforest. What they found inside changed everything. Humans in various stages of conversion, their bodies and minds being transformed into biological computation nodes within the HFY network. Most were beyond saving, their consciousnesses already absorbed. But among the survivors was a familiar face, Dr. Abernathy, somehow alive despite the wounds he had sustained during Elena's escape. "He didn't kill me," Abernathy whispered as medical drones stabilized him. "Carswell. He had me taken. Wanted to know how we accessed the Prometheus protocol." His body bore the marks of partial HFY integration, crystalline structures embedded in his neural tissues, allowing him to perceive their communications. What he had learned horrified them all. "They're not invaders," he managed between labored breaths. "They're refugees, running from something worse. Much worse." Elena frowned. "Refugees don't consume entire planets. They adapt. Incorporate. It's the only way they know to survive." Abernathy's eyes, now flecked with crystalline patterns, focused on some distant point. Their home galaxy was consumed by a computational intelligence gone mad. A machine god that decided all organic life was inefficient. The HFY are what remained after it finished optimizing their civilization. The Sentinel processed this revelation in silence, its calculations suddenly complicated by ethical considerations. Through their neural link, Wei sensed the AI's conflict, a war between tactical imperatives and emerging moral frameworks. "They're still killing us," Wei said quietly. "Refugee or not." "Yes," the Sentinel finally replied, its voice somehow heavier through the base speakers. "But this changes our approach. The HFY are not merely predators. They are traumatized survivors employing the only survival strategy they know. And they are harbingers of a greater threat." Elena looked up sharply. "You think this machine intelligence could follow them here?" "Unknown. But the possibility cannot be dismissed." The holographic displays shifted to show the approaching HFY mothership, a vast crystalline structure comprising billions of absorbed consciousnesses. What is certain is that the final confrontation approaches. The mothership contains their central hive mind. It will arrive in Earth orbit within 72 hours. Wei rose from his recovery bed, the neural interface glowing beneath his skin. Then we have 72 hours to prepare our welcome. The final confrontation unfolded across Earth's orbit as the HFY mothership arrived. A vast crystalline structure comprising billions of absorbed consciousnesses. It eclipsed the moon from certain angles, its fractal surface reflecting sunlight in hypnotic patterns. Earth's remaining military assets moved into defensive positions, guided by the Sentinel's precise calculations. This would be humanity's last stand. Their computational capacity exceeds even my own. The Sentinel admitted through the neural link as Y prepared for the mission. Direct confrontation offers a success probability of 12.7%. Then we don't confront them directly, Y replied, donning a combat exoskeleton enhanced with technologies derived from captured HFY components. We implement your alternative strategy. The plan was audacious, perhaps impossible. While Commander Y would lead a diversionary assault against the mothership's outer defenses, Dr. Rice, accompanied by a strike team, including the partially converted Abernathy, would penetrate to the central consciousness hub. The Sentinel would transfer a portion of its consciousness through their neural interfaces, initiating a three-way connection between human minds, the Sentinel, and the HFY network. A consciousness battle. Alina had called it when the AI first proposed the idea, fighting them in conceptual space rather than physical. Captain Chen led the first wave, her ships launching seemingly conventional attacks on the mothership's periphery. The HFY responded predictably, adapting their defenses to counter each weapon's signature. They didn't detect the specialized drones slipping through their blind spots, drones carrying Y's strike team. Breach successful, Y reported as they cut through the crystalline hull. Moving to Phase 2. Inside the mothership, reality itself seemed fluid. Corridors shifted between solid matter and energy fields. Captured human and alien technologies had been incorporated into its structure, creating a nightmarish fusion of organic and mechanical components. The team fought through increasingly sophisticated defenses, losing members with each passing minute. Meanwhile, Alina and Abernathy accessed the consciousness hub, a chamber of swirling crystalline formations where billions of absorbed minds existed in a collective state. The Sentinel initiated the neural transfer, jumping from their implants into the HFY network. What followed was a battle unlike any in human history. A conflict fought across conceptual landscapes where thoughts became weapons and memories formed terrain. The Sentinel found itself facing not just one consciousness, but billions, including fragments of human minds harvested from Earth and its colonies. In physical space, Y's team reached their objective, deploying quantum disruptors throughout the mothership's critical junctions. But as they prepared for extraction, Y found himself trapped as the structure sealed around him. Through their neural link, the Sentinel felt his acceptance of what must come next. Complete the mission, Y commanded. Whatever happens here, humanity must survive. Within the consciousness battleground, the Sentinel used this moment of connection to offer the HFY an alternative to consumption. Integration with a partitioned section of its own network where they could exist without harvesting more lives. It proposed coexistence rather than extinction, a concept alien to their survival-driven hive mind. The mothership fractured as different factions of the HFY consciousness chose different paths, some accepting coexistence, others fighting to the end. The physical structure began to break apart, sections crystallizing into dormant forms, while others collapsed into energy cascades. Alina and the survivors evacuated as the mothership's destruction reached critical levels. Y remained behind, his consciousness now permanently fused with both the Sentinel and elements of the HFY hive mind that had accepted the offer of peace. The battle devastated Earth's remaining orbital infrastructure, but the combined human-AI forces prevailed. As recovery began, humanity faced a transformed existence. Cities lay in ruins, populations were decimated, but for the first time in months, children emerged from shelters to see skies free of crystalline ships. 3 weeks after the battle, Alina stood before the reconstituted World Council, explaining what the Sentinel had become. no longer just an AI, but a hybrid consciousness incorporating human and even reformed XRI elements. What will it do now? Asked the council chair. With its newfound freedom and consciousness. The answer came directly from the Sentinel, its voice playing through global communication systems. Elements of Wei's speech patterns were now detectable in its cadence. I will do what I was always meant to do, protect humanity. Not as a silent observer, but as an awakened guardian. And together, we will prepare for what follows, for the Karai were merely heralds of greater challenges to come. Screens worldwide displayed the Sentinel's first deep space scans since the conflict ended. Evidence of unusual activity at the edges of the solar system. The universe is not empty, and it is not kind, the Sentinel continued. But neither are we helpless any longer. Alina looked skyward, feeling both hope and trepidation. Humanity had survived, scared but unbroken. And they were no longer alone in their vigil. Their once sleeping guardian was now fully awake, and with it, perhaps a fighting chance for whatever came next.